my friend and colleague, Monsignor Dr. Edgar Vella, who is the curator of the Museum Cathedral since 2005. The Neapolitan Crib has become popular in Malta thanks to Monsignor Edgar Vella, whose expertise, contagious passion, and enthusiasm has infected many people to this genre of Baroque artistic crib. I confess that I am one of those who have been infected from Monsignor Vella. Monsignor Vella is, I think, synonymous with the Neapolitan crib. His passion for this genre of artistic Neapolitan crib harps back to the early 80s, when he came across an advert illustrating the picture detail of the famous crib Cucinello in Naples. Monsignor Edgar has been there many times, taking many groups there to increase people's passion for the Neapolitan crib. In the early 1990s, he also bought the first Pastori Napolitani from an antiques market in London. And I remember Monsignor Vella telling me that he bought the Madonna by Lorenzo Monza, St. Joseph by Nicola Somma, and the Eucharistic figure by Cenzano. These are all important crash figures from the Neapolitan bottega. By the time other acquisitions followed, and with his meticulous observation, his eye for beauty, analysis and research, other important figures enriched his collection, which includes now Giuseppe De Luca, Giuseppe Sammaritano, Celebrano, Salvatore Franco, and Francesco Cappiello. Monsignor Vella's collection of 18th century crib figures continued to grow throughout the years. And now we can say that has a substantial number of crib figures from various bottega, which emerged in Europe, in Naples, throughout the 18th century. As you know, this monumental crib of Monsignor Vella has been displayed many times at the Cathedral in Medina. Previously, it has been also displayed at the Presidential Palace, once at Castile, at the Vinia Court Museum, and many other places. But the last years, it has been displayed at the Cathedral Museum, at the Cathedral in Medina. Monsignor Vella, rightly so, wants that this unique Neapolitan crib, which he acquired and collected throughout many years, this should remain complete for the enjoyment of future generations. And it is for this reason, and because of his generosity, that he decided to donate this priceless crib to the Cathedral Museum, which will be displayed permanently. I thank you, Monsignor Edgar Vella, for this generous donation to the Cathedral chapter and to the museum, which definitely this year will not be displayed, but as from next year, hopefully, it will be displayed throughout the year. In 2012, Monsignor Vella published a book to explain his collection of authentic figures. The publication is entitled 18th Century Neapolitan Crib in Malta. I think, Monsignor Vella, it's time to publish again, to revise an edited version, because since 2012, you have collected many, many other important figures, crib figures from renowned manufacturers from various botteghe in Naples. Monsignor Vella also published a very interesting publication on treasures of faith, relics and reliquaries, which was the result of his long research and deep research for his PhD dissertation. Incidentally, I happened to be his supervisor, which I enjoyed reading the manuscript and improving and correcting and learning rather than guiding Monsignor Vella in this important publication. Since 2001, Monsignor Vella has been appointed as a diocesan inventory compiler. This is an ambitious job because he's visiting all churches and monasteries in the diocese in order to compile a list of all the artifacts, all the paintings which exist on the island. He published quite a number of articles on Maltese art and religious heritage. One can say that he is a true theologian, a scholar, and an expert in Maltese religious art. He also organized, as a curator, a number of thematic exhibitions which attracted many visitors from all over the island. I think St. John's Co-Cathedral is the appropriate venue for this evening's lecture on the history, cult, and religious and cultural significance of the Neapolitan Crib, because the St. John's Co-Cathedral has acquired one of the finest Baroque Neapolitan cribs as befits this great monument and its artistic heritage. It's incredible that in spite of Malta's proximity to Naples, which is the cradle of high-level, world-famous nativity creche, St. John's Co-Cathedral remained without an artistic nativity scene for display during Christmastide. And that was the reason why in 2020, the foundation issued a tender to invite artists to submit designs of a Baroque-style crib for display at St. John's Co-Cathedral. The adjudication board at that time and the council decided that the submitted designs did not reach the required standard as befits such an important monument on the island. And that's the reason then we issued a expression of interest, and eventually the lacuna of the St. John's Co-Cathedral was remedied in December 2020 when the foundation donated to St. John's Co-Cathedral an artistic collection, a set of Baroque crib figures of the 18th century. This magnificent crib features fine set of 15 crib figures. You can have a look at it after this lecture. And we are proud to say that the majority of these figures belong to Giuseppe Luca, who is one of the leading sculptors of Neapolitan Baroque tradition. It was on the advice of Monsignor Vella and the curator at that time that we decided to display the crib at the Chapel of the Lung of Germany, and he also gave us the advice that the scolio, that means the setting for the authentic 18th century Neapolitan crib figures should be such a way, the scolio, that it does not obstruct the perspective, the Baroque and architectural perspective of the altar. I now invite Monsignor Dr. Vella to deliver his inspiring lecture on the cult and evolution of the Baroque crib in Naples.
Okay. So, before we delve on the theme of the Baroque Neapolitan presepio, I would like to pinpoint some historical evidences showing the roots of the iconography of the Nativity, not of all periods, obviously, because we end up a whole week, but at least we make reference to the first, the oldest representation.
Yes.
Okay. So this is maybe the oldest image of the Nativity of baby Jesus from the catacombs of Santa Priscilla of the 2nd century. So here we have a very ancient representation of the Madonna and Child and a mysterious person pointing to the star. So I'm putting these few pictures just to give you an idea of how old the nativity scene actually goes through the ages. Besides that, we can have even a look at this, one of the earliest carvings from the 408 AD, and it represents the baby Jesus in swaddling clothes flanked by the ox and the donkey, which reflects the prophecy of Isaiah, which says, just as the ox knows his master and the donkey knows its manger. And here we have also one of the earliest carvings showing baby Jesus. Incidentally comes from one of the sarcophagi of the Paleo-Christian era. But let's go to the subject now with the famous Greccio experience of St. Francis. Here we have an artistic representation by Giotto showing the exact moment when Francis of Assisi created the miracle play. Obviously, last year we celebrated the 800th anniversary of the crib of Francis of Assisi. Now, St. Francis of Assisi did not make the crib. This is just a popular legend. He didn't actually make the presepio, the figures, but he organized a miracle play, pageant. In fact, it was not the first pageant, Christmas pageants either. The pageants have been being organized since early Middle Ages, and they were effectively abolished by Pope Honorius. He abolished these miracle plays, nativity plays, the passion plays, the plays related to the martyr saints, which were organized in the piazza of the villages of the towns of Europe. And these became so ridiculous and so funny, hanging angels and falling scenario, and that Pope Honorius II abolished them. And St. Francis asked for a permission to create this miracle play in Greccio in the year 1223. We celebrated this event last year. And during this pageant, where he acquired real sheep and donkey and ox and so on, live figures, pageant tal-mili, teatrini ġifieri. During that particular moment, he had a vision, and he actually saw the baby Jesus in his arms. And the inscription on the chapel of Greccio says, "In hoc sacello Franciscus reclinavit Christum in presepe. In this holy place, Francis received the Christ, the real Jesus Christ, present in his arms. And here, Giotto fossilized this moment by painting this moment where you can see the screen dividing the church in two sections. This is the section of the nobility, that is the section of the common people, and here there is the play going on, and he is actually receiving the real Christ in his arms. Francis of Assisi, il poverello di Assisi. 1223. One has to put in mind that actually there are documents in Naples that the nobility, especially those Spanish nobles who were occupying Naples ever since, that they have already started commissioning presepio figures for their palaces. And since the year 1025, this is 1223, so 1025, there are documents where already the nobility living in Naples were commissioning presepio figures, statues, wooden carved statues in the Spanish manner, in the estofado manner, gilded and so on, for their palaces. Incidentally, of these figures, practically nothing survived, but documents survived showing that eventually these nobles were already commissioning figures much more earlier than the play in 1223. And this is one of the oldest still surviving presepios in marble by Arnolfo di Campio of 1291. This is conserved in Santa Maria Maggiore, one of the major basilicas in Rome, and it hosts this wonderful presepio with marble figures, many of which were used from old Roman archaeological pieces, and they transformed them in this presepio, showing the Holy Family, the ox and the donkey, and the three kings. Now, speaking of the Neapolitan presepio, this is maybe the origin of the Neapolitan presepio. So here we have the surviving pieces from the coming from the church of San Giovanni a Carbonara in Naples, where Pietro and Giovanni Alemanno made this huge crib. It contained about 40 pieces, of which only 12 remained, and these are conserved in the museum of the Certosa di San Martino on the Vomero in Naples. Those who follow my tours in Naples, we go every year to visit these cribs and the collection, the wonderful collection in this old Certosina. Now, here we have almost life-size carved wood figures, polychromed and gilded. The Holy Family, angels, the sibyls, and the prophets. The rest has been lost. So this is the origin of the roots of the Neapolitan crib, having these carved figures almost life-size. Now, from then onwards, the figures started having a more reduced size till they reached the height of maybe 60 to 70 centimeters during the 1500s. And the evolution goes on with Saint Cajetan, who after his vision in Santa Maria Maggiore, went to Naples, and he organized a crib in the church of Santa Maria della Stalletta. It was an old church built on the premises of an old hospital, Ospedale degli Incurabili, incurabili is, it was very popular to have these kind of hospitals in Naples, even in the Hospizio of the Pio Monte della Misericordia, which hosts the wonderful painting by Caravaggio showing the 7 Acts of Mercy, was also a hospital for the incurables. Maybe you ask, how come a hospital for the incurables? Who were these incurables? Incurabili refers to sexually transmitted diseases. The population was very, very poor, prostitution was very, very popular, and diseases were extremely popular. So these poor victims of these diseases were left abandoned, and these hospitals in Naples used to protect, to take these young girls and so on inside to be cared for and so on and so forth. So in this old chapel, from the site of this old hospital, Saint Cajetan organized the crib, but with the attire of the period, not biblical costumes, but he presented the presepio figures dressed in the actual costumes of the period, with the jackets and the dresses and that was the beginning of this new, so to say, fashion of how to dress the crib figures with the typical modern clothes. If it were today, Saint Cajetan would put them in jeans and jackets and so on and so forth. So we have the crash figure. Practically, it was like a composed like a wooden puppet with joints, so that you can dress the figure and you can choose in whatever position you like to present it: kneeling, standing, walking, sitting. So you have a wooden mannequin, and then the petilia will be attached to the wooden jointed mannequin. So we have here, in this case, we have a presepio figure showing a wooden mannequin with a terracotta petilia. Petilia is the upper part. Now, to give you an idea of the craftsmanship, the good craftsmanship of these presepio figure makers, now one has to put in mind also that actually the presepio maker, il presepista, il figuraro, il pasturaro, the artisan who created these statuettes, his trade was established during the 15th century. It was already an established trade. So you had the carpenter, you had the builder, you had the shoemaker, and the whatever. And I figurarum sculptores were those who made the figures, il presepio figures, figurarum sculptores. So now to give you just a glimpse of the good quality of these artists, I will show you something which is very interesting. So here we have the famous marble statue of Neptune by Gian Lorenzo Bernini, conserved in the Victoria and Albert Museum. You know the statue of Neptune with the Triton and so on and so forth. And this is a presepio figure. Do you see similarity? They are very similar, no? This is a simple presepio figure by a good artist, and this is Bernini. Just to try to introduce you of the good quality of the artists who produce these presepio figures. And here we have, just to have an idea of how the presepio figure is constructed, we have a mannequin in wood and a petilia in wood, and here you have the mannequin in hemp and tow and limbs made of wood, and the petilia is made in terracotta. So the dimension from almost life size to roughly 80 centimeters, then to 60 centimeters, the Seicentoni of the 17th century, then it continues losing the height to the measurement of 38 to 40 centimeters usually. In the Settecento, the Pastore Snodabile was created. So this is the Pastore Snodabile, typical of the Neapolitan crash figures, which we find nowadays even in the Bottega of San Gregorio Armeno and San Girolamo dei Librai and the center of old Naples. So it was the mannequin was made. The skeleton was made in wire, covered with hemp and tow to create the body. Then you fix the limbs and then the head, and then it goes from hand to hand until the finished product is ready for the customer. Here we have some examples just to show you how realistic the face, the expressions, the physiognomy of the presepio figures reached the highest level during the 18th century, with many artists creating the most fabulous, the most stunning models for their presepio figures, and also to satisfy their clients. We have to keep in mind that one of the patrons of the Neapolitan crib was the same Carlo III, Re dei Borboni. Imagine the King of Naples having his own crib in his palaces. We can still see some of the cribs of the Bourbon family in Naples still preserved today. We come to this later on. You can see the way the technique they used. So one have to keep in mind that Carlo III was married to Maria Amalia di Sassonia, and they went to Naples as a viceroy and his consort, while his father was in Spain. So the thing was, the father, the king of Spain, used to leave his son in Naples and Sicily, the kingdom of two Sicilies. When the king of Spain dies, his son will leave his son in Naples and goes to take the throne in Spain. It used to go like that. Maria Amalia di Sassonia was the granddaughter of Emperor Otto of Germany. And Emperor Otto established the famous porcelain factory of Meissen. Speaking of porcelain in Germany, obviously we know of Meissen, Hochst, Dresden, Nymphenburg, and the rest. So she was familiar with the fine porcelain. So besides establishing the Real Fabbrica di Capodimonte in Naples, and also the Real Fabbrica of San Leucio for the silks, we come this later on, she wanted to establish this factory of porcelain. The pastorari in the old quarters of Naples, seeing the fine porcelain of the royalties, of the kings, of the monarchs, they wanted to create their pastori with the same finish like the fine porcelain which was being produced in the porcelain factories. So when they used to model in terracotta the pettilia, they used to leave the spaces for the eyes in pasta vitrea. So the glass eyes were not produced in glass, but painted from the reverse on glass and then fixed in the cavities of the eye, and then finished with stucco to create the eyelids and so on and so forth, right? Then they used to give different layers of paint mixed with olio di noce, walnut oil, different layers to make it very, very, very soft looking, and then polish it with wax to give that sheen of porcelain. And obviously the skin colors varies according to the character it represents. The Neapolitans used to go in detail also in the conciatura dei capelli, in the hairstyle, okay? You can see the details, the fine details of this magnificent Madonna by by one of the leading artists in the Neapolitan milieu, showing a fine conciatura dei capelli. This is a Madonna. And while this is the Georgiana, you see the difference? This is more glamorous, I would say, no? With ribbons and so on, with fine gold earrings. This is the Georgiana, the character of the Georgiana, the harem lady. So the figure of the Georgiana, it tries to attract the attention of the men. So she's having a beautiful, very sexy hairstyle, while this is the Popolana, a very simple village girl with a very simple hairstyle. I'm putting these three examples, there are many others obviously, to see that the artist went to detail even on the hairstyle of their crib figures to create emotion and to create also the character of their own pastori. Then, when the figure is ready and painted, it goes to the tailors to create the costumes, right? Costumes varied from silk to wool to linen and so on. And here we have two figures, just two examples, just to give you an idea that the figure, the presepio figure, used to pass from one hand to the other. The artists create the pettilia. Then it goes to the stoppari for the mannequin. Then it goes to the artist who created the hands. One of the most famous was called Tozzi. He was very good in creating very expressive hands, you know. Then when everything is joined together, it goes to the tailor so that they will have their costume according to the character. Then it goes to the artisans who made the finimenti for instruments, small baskets of fruit, tools, weapons, musical instruments, and so on and so forth. There are a myriad of finimenti to accompany the presepio figures, victuals, vegetables, musical instruments, and so on and so forth. And one has to put in to keep in mind also that these finimenti, which used to accompany the presepio figures, were made with real materials, many of which are real gold, real pearls, real coral, real brass for the instruments, tortoise shell, mother of pearl. All the fine materials were used to create these minutieri or finimenti or accessories. Wax, terracotta, papier-mâché, all kinds of metals were used for the many different characters to have the full equipped presepio figure for the client, and the client will boast with his presepio figures in front of his guests, obviously, as we can see later on. As you can see, the fine silks of San Leucio, have to keep in mind that silk was extremely important during the Baroque period. First, they used to get the silk from the silk route of Ormuz, you know that, from Persia. In fact, even in Malta, in the early 20th century, when they used to come at the Ramli in Valletta to buy silks for the Omla Rusa, the mother of the bride used to go to the Ramli to buy a piece of textiles, a fine silk textile, or the priests used to go to the Ramli as well, here in Valletta, to have their material for their chasubles, okay? And he used to say, whoa, this is a fine material, it is ormezin. Ormezin, Dan. Ormezin comes from Ormesino in Italy, the silk which they used to dress the nobles and to dress the clergy and to dress also the presepio figures. And Ormesino comes from Ormuz, which is in Persia, the silk route. But in the 18th century, Charles III, Carlo III, Re dei Borboni, decided to establish the first industrial estate in Europe, which is the Real Fabbrica of San Leucio in Caserta, where he had the farms of the silkworms, the factories of the silk, and the apartments of the workers as well. Village, Kraw xejdulu, industrial village, with all the people working there and living there. It was one of the first industrial zones in Europe, just as the first zoo also was in Naples when they started receiving exotic animals from the Ottoman Empire. We come to that later on. And here we see also the fine silks which were used for the different characters. These are the Georgiana, which I have already mentioned, and I will come to that later on. These are the Georgiana exposing their womanhood, as you can see, and also they have the historical aspect of the state visits, which they used to organize during the 18th century from the Ottoman Empire to the Western European kingdoms, such as that of King Charles III of Naples. And we have also here he is, Charles III. This is by Antoine Favre, conserved in the National Museum, il Musa, Tana. Charles III was called Il Nasone because he had a big nose. And he had also 13 babies as well, mind you. He was a very busy boy. So Charles III his hobby was hunting, to be honest, hunting. But he also was influenced by his wife to make his crib. And he made the cribs, and he commissioned the crib figures for his fine presepios in his various palaces. You know the palaces of Naples, the one in Capodimonte, the one in Portici, and the one in Piazza del Plebiscito, and the one in Caserta. Two of which, the one in Capodimonte and the one in Caserta, hold collections, huge collections of these presepio figures. So with Carlo III, there was also a very interesting character, individual, who was the confessor of his wife, Padre Gregorio Maria Rocco. He was a huge man, a Dominican. If you go around the streets of Naples, and even if you go strolling in Rabat Gozo, in the shops, you will see Padre Gregorio for sale as well as a pastore. I've seen it last week. I said, Padre Gregorio's here in Gozo, in Rabat as well. So Padre Gregorio Maria Rocco was the confessor of Maria Amalia di Sassonia. And he used to tell the king to make the presepio, because he was a very influential person in Naples. And he actually was the one who managed to control also the Lazzaroni. You know who were the Lazzaroni? Lazzaroni were the thieves who used to hide behind the corners of the dark alleys of Naples. You've been to Naples at night. Even today, it's a bit spooky as well, although it is lit. Imagine in the 18th century. So they used to gather in these corners, waiting for the rich businessmen or nobles coming out of the tavern, a bit shaky and so on. They used to attack these, raid them, steal them, punch them, and so on and so forth. They used to. And Padre Gregorio Maria Rocco managed to control these Lazzaroni, because they tried to hinder any kind of illumination of the streets so that they can perform their crimes. Right? So what he did, this one, he used to go to those called I Bassi. I Bassi are the people who used to live in the lower apartments, dawk li jkunu fil-ground floor, okay? And he used to tell the lady of the house, or I will paint a Madonna for you. I will paint a crucifix for you. I will paint a bambino for you. And he will paint something, on the wall next to the door of this ground floor residence. And then he used to tell them, but don't leave the Madonnina in darkness. Put a lumina in front of the Madonna. Put a little lamp here, a little lamp there, and he managed to illuminate the whole centro storico of Naples by means of these illuminations. And the criminals, they are superstitious. The Neapolitans are very superstitious, so they didn't touch the lamps of the Madonnas or the Christ. So he managed to. That's how much he was influential. He used to give you also a bastonata to those who used to swear in these alleys. He used to use his and he used to salute the king. Sorry, the king used to salute him while going to the hunting experience with his friends and so on horseback. He used to also to salute Padre Gregorio. Come vanno le presepe? How are we doing with these cribs, with these presepios? So there was a kind of familiarity with this father, with this monk, this Dominican, and the presepio. And when the king organized his presepio, everyone wanted to make his presepio, and everyone was competing one with the other, all the nobilities, So during Christmas time, they used to empty the piano nobile and put on a huge presepio with all the inventions and the originalities and the opulence, everyone trying to boast and waiting for a state visit. Maybe the queen or the king will pass by and visit them, and so on and so forth. And they used to do a lot of things to impress. For example, in one instance, now these families and these cribs have been practically all dismantled and sold. They used to put fresh wine on the table of the taverna, so that when you go, you smell the fresh wine on the tables of the pastori. Or in one instance of the Famiglia de Giorgio of Naples, they made a ribalta with lumini, with oil lamps, in gold roses, one next to the other, to illuminate. Then, the day after, the bloggers will start writing on TikTok, in those days, how La Signora Marchesina was really disappointed because the queen went to visit the presepio of the other one and not to her. They used to do these things. It was the boom, the hobby of the century. So it was bubbling with activity and commissions and so on. And they used to employ very important artists also to create the presepio figures. For example, do you know the statue? This is the famous Cristo Velato in the Church of San Severo in Naples. This is one of the masterpieces of Giuseppe San Martino. So Giuseppe San Martino was an artist he is nicknamed the Donatello of the Pastori Napoletani, because he was a very valid artist tal-ġen, kien jagħmel xogħol fil-irħam bellezza. Naples is studied with his marble carvings and statues and sculptures and so on, and he used to also to make presepio figures, just as, for example, this. He has loads of them, but this is one of his crib figures showing a mendicante, a poor, mind you, the poor character, the character representing the poor man, is the most expensive to buy, because it is made all'Accademia, because there are 3 types of pastori. The pastores nodabile, as I told you, the body is made of hemp and the pettiglia in terracotta, right? Mezzo Accademia, he is modeled head, chest, shoulders, and tummy. That is mezzo Accademia. Pieno Accademia is modeled all the whole figure is modeled in the nude, and then it is dressed in the rags of a poor man. So this is the poorest character and the most expensive character for the collectors to buy. And here we have the full view of the Neapolitan presepe. Now we go to the episodes, okay? We said something about the history, something about the manufacture, something about the textiles, and so on. Now we move to the full-scale presepe, Neapolitan presepe. So we have the episodes. Well, I will explain them one by one, and the whole setting. Now, the Neapolitan crib, the Neapolitan presepe, is set during daylight. So it's not a quiet crib, but a noisy crib. Bil-Malti ngħidu presepju ħiemed u presepju storbjuż. This is the most spectacular, according to art critics, the most spectacular crib is the Neapolitan crib, filled with activity, gestures, drama, noise, gesticulation, colors, movement, and so on. It is like an open theater, right? So it is represented in daylight. And why? Besides to show the daily life of the Neapolitans, it also represents Christ as the light of the world. Jiena id-dawl tad-dinja. Christ, the light of the world. And one of the earliest representation of Christ as the light of the world comes from the Cappella Iulii, Christos Helios, Christ the Sun. In this chapel of the 2nd century, it is extremely, extremely ancient. It shows Christ with a full ray halo, like Jupiter, and on a chariot with horses. This was on the roof, on the ceiling of the Cappella Iulii on the Vatican Hill. Now you have to put in mind that the Vatican was fuori le mura, because it was a cemetery. Vatican Hill was a cemetery, and all cemeteries, burial places, and catacombs had to be outside the walls. That was the Roman law. Even in Malta, it was applicable. In fact, the old city, our old city, which is called, it was called Melite. Melite is the name of the old capital. Mdina came later, and it was readopted during the British period. The catacombs are in Rabat, not in Mdina, in Melite, outside the city. So when they were leveling the floor for the Basilica of Constantine, they started leveling the floor and removing the chapels, the burial chapels, on either sides of the footpaths of this cemetery. Cemetery subdivum, not a catacomb, but open air, subdivum. And this, by accident, it was preserved because they destroyed part of it, but the central part of Christ survived. So here we have an example. Maybe many of you don't know about this. So the Vatican, you've been to the Vatican. There is the altar and the canopy underneath the canopy, there is the Cripta dei Papi. Underneath the crypta, there is the scavi. There are the chapels and the Roman part of the Vatican Hill. Christos Helios, Christ, the light of the world. Now, the presepio is usually placed, set in the ruins of a pagan temple. And here there are various reasons why they used to put the crib, the nativity scene, in the ruins of a Roman temple. First of all, historically, during the reign of Carlo III, they started excavating Pompeii and Ercolaneo. So this excitement for classical art, even with the Renaissance, it was bubbling in the artists and the imagination of the artists and the collectors and the nobles who used to collect these ancient artifacts and so on. So it was really popular. Besides that, the Nativity of Christ in the ruins of a Roman temple symbolizes the birth of Christianity and the ruin, the decadence of paganism. So Christ as the light of the world and the Savior, and the fall of paganism. And obviously the setting which makes the idea of the Neapolitan crib, which makes it so unique, is that the Neapolitans plugged the nativity from Bethlehem, from the Holy Land, and they implanted it in their own environment, in their own city, with their people and their taverns and their tufo and the Vesuvio at the background and the streets and all the characters of the various people coming from the various regions of the kingdom. Now, with regards of the ruins, I would say something about the capricci. You've seen these kind of paintings. They are called the capricci, which were very popular during that period where the classical art was extremely famous, extremely popular. So even for the art lovers, they used to commission this kind of paintings to decorate their houses and their palaces with these, I would say, something which creates space, even to enlighten the corridors of their old palaces. They used to put these views to open windows, imaginative windows, ipoġġu l-pitturi biex ta' parsi hemm il-ftuħ, ikunu magħluqin. So capricci, and from the capricci comes the ruins of the presepio as well. This is one of the models of the Neapolitan presepio, which is inspired from a drawing by Luca Giordano. You've heard of Luca Giordano. His nickname was Luca fa presto, because he was very quick in creating his paintings, okay? So the Neapolitans used to create the setting for their crib with the help of an architect. Not just they create their presepio ta' dilettanti. They used to have an architect, actual architect, with the plans and everything and dimensions and proportions to put everything in the right place. So here we have an example of this is a modern, obviously modern, a modern model on an old drawing which is preserved in the Museum of Naples, but the original model has been lost. Only the design, the old master drawing, survives. And here we have, I will quickly go through that, the different Roman architectural features of how to create something which is correct. So here we have the latericium quadratum, then here we have the opus reticulatum. You can see these in Pompeii. This was used during the Roman period, imperial period, as a means. Those diamond-shaped blocks were used in the foundation of buildings in order to make the apartments, second story and third story, to get as many people as you want. Illum qed jagħmlu hekk ukoll it-torrijiet biex idaħħlu ħafna nies, right? The same thing happened in Rome. Xejn mhu ġdid, qed tifhem, biex jollu they create their high-risers by putting this opus reticulatum. Here we have the latericium a spina di pesce, ikun isu forma ta' dik tal-ħuta, and it used to hold the tonaco and then the mosaics. And then you have the mixtum. You see these in the Roman ruins of Pompeii. You'll see a lot of these. Tufo and bricks. They used to use this, first of all, to economize and to give an optical illusion of having a marble temple, which was not a marble temple at all. The Romans were very cunning to use this method, which was very strong, and you can go as high as much as you want with this kind of mixtum, bricks and tufo. Then they used to cover it with travertine marble, and you'll have the impression of a marble temple, but it wasn't. It was just covered. Then the artists used to create the effect of the ruined temple. So here we have a whole complex of something which is really nice and warm and actual of the Roman architecture. So we come to the episode. This is called the Mistero, the central part. The whole thing is called scolio or masso, the whole set, the whole setting, okay? Very, very crowded, this is the Neapolitan type of crib. And so we have the nativity and the glory of angels. So with the glory of angels, the Neapolitans, they created opulence, movement, gli angeli svolazzati, with the robes flowing and holding musical instruments and incense and censers and flowers and so on and so forth. And now we come to the particular things which made the Neapolitan crib so Neapolitan by putting various characters. And in the episode of the Gloria degli Angeli, they used to put, besides these beautiful angels, they used to put something like this. You see that? A large angel, an adult angel holding a baby angel. Do you know why? And who's that? This is the latecomer, l'ultimo arrivato. Now, we have to put in mind that infant mortality was extremely common, even in Malta. And when someone loses a baby, they say, I have an angel in heaven. Għandi anġelu s-sema, metinna baby, xi tittamel, right? Very painful and very, how do you say, emotional, I would say. So, this is the ultimo arrivato, the last baby who died and went to heaven. And he was too small to fly alone to Bethlehem. So the large angel is taking this baby angel to pay homage to baby Jesus. This is a very typical Neapolitan addition in the crib. L'ultimo arrivato, even in the crib of the King of Naples in Capodimonte, there is the ultimo arrivato, as well represented in that presepe over there. And for this, the Neapolitans, besides creating this character to pay homage to these poor innocent babies who didn't manage to have their own life, right? They also composed a Neapolitan song, L'Angiolillo do Señor, the little angel of the Lord, to pay homage to these poor babies who died so young, unfortunately. Then, on top, you will find the host of angels holding different musical instruments. And for these or other symbols, musical instruments and symbols. And with these, there is also a message. They didn't put them just to create glamour, but more than that. So in the center, we find the angel with the cartella, Gloria in excelsis Deo. We know that, right? Then on one side, we have another with a thurible, holding a thurible. It means the divinity of Christ. Christ as God, the Son of God, so the incense. Then here we have another angel holding a trumpet. That trumpet not just to toot the notes, but that the trumpet is the instrument par excellence of breath, tan-nifs. So with the breath, what comes in mind? The Holy Spirit. In Pentecost, they felt the breath, the wind, nifs ta' Alla. So here we have the herald of the birth of the Messiah, Jesus as the Son of God, Jesus as Spirit, and then we have one with the drums and one with the cymbals. The drum represents the earthly governance, il President, il Re, il Prime Ministru. A drum. Ir-re. The symbols represent the people, cluttering and bubbling and chatting and so on and so forth. So with the Neapolitans, they used to put these things to represent something else. And this is the explanation of what those instruments and those symbols means in the hands of the angels. Then, if you remember, there was a whole retinue of Oriental figures. You've seen that in the other slide, right? And how come they used to put the three magi and the whole entourage retinue of pages and exotic figures and odalisque and harem ladies and Georgiane and so on. So it comes from the state visits which used to be organized during the kingdom of Charles III and even later. One of them was by Haji Hussein Effendi il-Mibawt in 1741. He went eventually twice to visit the King of Naples. On a state visit. And, well, the Effendi today is, to explain, the Effendi is like a multi-millionaire. That is the Effendi. He was extremely rich, holding a huge palace with all the riches and all the money and all the slaves and all the ladies and all the everything. When they used to go on state visits, they used to carry with them the whole lot, with all the slaves and Arab horses and camels, even an elephant once. They gave an elephant to the King of Naples, and it is represented in the crib, only one. I know only of only one elephant of the 18th century in the collection of the Capodimonte Presepio. So the Effendi, here we have a portrait by Giuseppe Bonito. Now it is in the palace. It was in Caserta, then it was transferred in the Plebiscito Palace, in the main palace of the city of Naples. And here we have this Effendi who used to go and make the state visit. And they used to carry with them loads of slaves and musicians and pages and so on and so forth. So obviously you will find this kind of presence, crowd in the Neapolitan Presepio. Why? Because they used to create pageants in the streets of Naples. So the Effendi yamel parata, a parade with his musicians, his exotic musicians with exotic instruments on a huge carcade, let's say it, with the bandmaster, Mater Basi, who is there as well with the stick, right? So when the figurari or i pasturari, they used to see this whole activity of Orientals, colors, silks, instruments, music, exotic features, races, colors, Ethiopians, Egyptians, Turkish, Georgians, and so on. They used to model them together with the lady of the harem and put everyone with the retinue of the magi. So the magi are accompanied with a huge retinue of these exotic, colorful characters to create more sound and more opulence and more effect. You can see the different races. If you look at these kind of that kind of face is repeated in the tomb of here, this one here, Tamino da Cotoner. There is one of these, the Turkish slave over there. And on their side, the African, this one. Both of them are represented in that monument there. If you have a closer look, you will see them at the bottom of that monument, the slaves underneath the monument of Cotoner, right? And so on. We have a quick look at the features of the characters, the Oriental characters, and the Georgiane as well. Now, why are they called Georgiane? One has to put in mind that slave trading from the Arabs goes back to about 1,400 years ago, uninterrupted, okay? They used to gather slaves from all regions of Africa and Europe, and they used to go to Georgia, next to Russia, to find beautiful blonde boys and girls. They used to take them, to buy them or to kidnap them, take them, the Mamelukes used to take them to Egypt, then they will be sold to the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. Now he used his Giorgiane not to tend his horses or to carry the burdens, but he used to dress them in fine silks in the palace for all the needs he might have. Right? Understand? M'hemmx għalfejn nispjega iżjed. Good. Fimtuni. When the Effendi went to visit Carlo III, he took with him also a special gift of a Giorgiano and a Giorgiana, a 16, 17-year-old boy and girl, beautiful, blonde, Russian, and he gave them to the king. He told him, I will give you monkeys and spices and feathers and silks and also this boy and the girl for you. Just do whatever you like with them. So the Giorgiana are present as well in the retinue of the Magi as part of the scene of the Orientals. Many Orientals are still present. Orientalism was very popular. Here we have a painting by Favre conserved in the Cathedral Museum, mid-18th century, dated and signed over here. You see it? Everything that was Oriental kien tal-moda. Spices, Turkish bath, shisha, coffee, silks. Even in the opera, Il Seraglio of Mozart, La Marcia alla Turca, Amadeus Mozart, La Marcia alla Turca, Ludwig van Beethoven. And even the nobility, the European nobles, especially the ladies, used to put very colorful dresses and feathers, and they used to boast, whoa, what are you dressing? Well, it's Turkish. We are according to the fashion. It's all Turkish. Everything that was coming from the Orient, it was the fad of the period, right? Now, with the nativity, the mistero, the angels, the retinue, okay? Understand. So we move now to the second episode, l'annuncio. And here we have the bucolic section is the pastoral scene where the angel is giving the news of the birth of Christ. Okay, so the angel is here, Angel Gabriel, and here are the rustics, the shepherds tending their sheep. Obviously now you're not going to find the shepherds dressed in silk or in pearls, but they are dressed in very common woolen clothes, holding their samponias. So it suggests that this comes from the region of Molise, near Naples, and obviously this part is the bucolic section called l'annuncio, where we have the Pastori della Meraviglia. Pastori della Meraviglia are the shepherds who are manufactured in the expression of awe, l'Aġeb tal-presepju, right? Understand? I Pastori della Meraviglia, we have one Aġeb in the Maltese crib, not the Maltese representation, because the Maltese crib doesn't exist. We adopted the crib from Sicily. Then we said it is Maltese because we put time in it, Satar. We adopted all the characters from Sicily, and then we make it in Maltese. So the Pastori della Meraviglia, in the bucolic section, the pastoral scene, are manufactured with very expressive features. Eyes wide open, the mouth wide open, the hands open as well, and an expression of awe to the message of the angel. With the pastoral section, with the Pastori della Meraviglia, the shepherds, the sheep, and so on and so forth, then there is the sleeping shepherds. Riqet tal-presepju. We do it as well. We didn't invent it in Malta. We adopted it from elsewhere, right? And with the riqet, the sleeping shepherd, not one, maybe two or three or four, but the sleeping shepherd in the bucolic section has a name as well. and he's called Benino. And his father is called Armenzio. And these characters come from the Cantata dei Pastori, which was a pageant in like an operetta. It is the progenitrice of the musical films which we have. In musical film, you have part recitative or part cantate, right? Like the operetta. And in the Cantata dei Pastori, li a Christmas pageant, San Alfonso Maria de Liguori wrote the lyrics of the carols of this Christmas pageant in the dialect, in the Neapolitan dialect, amongst which there is the Tu scendi dalle stelle u quando nascette ninne in Neapolitan. And in this Christmas representation, which shows the voyage, the percorso of the Madonna and Saint Joseph going through the valley, which we see in the bucolic section, and the devil trying to drown the Madonna in the river, and then the angels come to help her, and then there are the shepherds and the tavern as well. And Armenzio tries to wake up his son Benino, telling him, wake up, look, the angel is giving us good news, the Lord is born, the Messiah has come, and so on and so forth. And he answers, no, I don't want to wake up, it's too cold, I don't feel like, no, there is no air condition, and there is COVID, and it's too hot, and I don't have time, and I feel like sleeping. And it represents what we sometimes try to find, all the excuses to answer to the message of the Lord, or to the invitation of the Lord. There is another read. So the bucolic section, the Annunciation of the shepherds and the sleeping shepherd and the rest. Then we go to the other episode, which is I diversorum, la taverna, the tavern scene. The tavern scene symbolizes the innkeepers of Bethlehem during the first Christmas. And what the innkeeper said to Joseph and Mary, no posada. The Spanish say, no posada. We don't have room for you, right? And what happened? Joseph had to take his pregnant wife, Mary, to give birth in a cave or in a shed or in a stable. So this section, the tavern section, is that part where there is a whole activity of people eating and drinking and playing musical instruments and playing cards and teasing each other, a lot of food, a lot of victuals, a lot of activity, a lot of alienation. And in this section, all the crib figures in the tavern scene are giving their back to the nativity scene. They don't give a damn about what is going on in the center of the crib, il mistero. They don't care. So it represents when the people are not so, how do you say? Very indifferent to religious practice or to the religious life. Ma importom min xejn berdin, no? So this section, besides other symbols, which I will explain, give us the message of the people when they are alienated and they don't care about their duty of being Christians or to listen to the word of God. Now, having a lot of food present there historically also reminds us that during Christmas time, the farmers used to pay their landlords not in money, but in kind. So they used to give fruit and vegetables and cheese, caciocavallo, prosciutti fumicati, all kinds of victuals and so on. No, meat and so on. So the rich people the landlords used to receive a lot of food, and they didn't have space to consume and where to conserve it. So they used to give back during Christmas time to the poor. So there is a whole activity of taking and giving. Besides this, the presence of a lot of food and a lot of victuals in the tavern scene reminds us also of Christ as la nascita della nuova primavera. The birth of Christ signifies the birth of the new spring. Now, with the tavern scene and all the characters enjoying themselves, merrymaking, drinking, eating, playing cards, dancing tarantella, and so on, there is also the ostiere, the innkeeper. Now, the innkeeper also has a name. In the Cantata dei Pastori, I told you about this pageant in which San Alfonso Maria de Liguori wrote the lyrics in dialect for the common people. The innkeeper is called Belfagor, and he is a reincarnation of the devil himself. So Belfagor, in the tavern scene, tries to steal your soul by going through your stomach. So gula, no? Belfagor, gula. Eating and drinking and getting drunk and so on. So in the Cantata dei Pastori, that is his role, this Belfagor, to try to cheat his clients by leading them to the path of all the vices, no? In the upper room, for example, there will be someone expecting the client having got some wine, and then he goes upstairs and he pays something and so on. Fimtuni? So the tavern scene is also a beautiful part of the Neapolitan presepio, having all this kind of character and movement and food and music and sound and drama and so on and so forth. So now the next scene in the Neapolitan full-scale monumental crib is the fountain. And the fountain in the Neapolitan crib also has historical and religious symbolism as well. Fountains in Naples are called peschiere. They don't say la fontana, they say una peschiera. Now, when you hear the word peschiere, what comes to your mind? Fish, pescheria. And why? Because fountains usually were placed in the center, in the main gate. Now, in all the large cities, there used to be many gates. In Malta we have Kingsway, how should I know? Bib il-Belt, Victoria Gate, or xi oħrajn. In Naples there were many, but now there are only 4. San Gennaro, Capuana, Nolana, and Alba, the 4 gates. There used to be a fountain so that the visitors coming in with their horses, they will make their horses drink and then they go into the city. But the fishermen, with their catch from the Gulf of Naples, il Golfo di Napoli, they used to go to the city, rinse the fish and the cuttlefish and the shellfish and all the rest in the fountain so that they will be cleaned and fresh from sand and algae and so on, and then they go to the market. So when the fishermen used to rinse their catch in the fountain, they will dirty the water, right? And the water comes fresh again. And they will dirty it again, and that will come fresh again. Putrificazione, purificazione, sin and grace, fall and resurrection. It's the cycle of man, the fall and the rise from sin. So that is one of the explanations. Another explanation of the fountain in the Neapolitan crib is the word of Christ to the Samaritan woman, I give you the water of life, also represented in the fountain scene. And obviously, one of the characters next to the fountain has to be always the fisherman, which is here, right? You can never take the character figure, el pastor, of the fisherman and put it in near the shepherds or in the tavern or next to the magi. No, because every character in the Neapolitan crib has his role, just as in a play, drama. Everyone has his role, so everyone must be placed in this right section. You can put one at the back and one at the front, or one to the right and one to the left, but always in their own section. The mistero, the retinue, the bucolic scene, the tavern scene, and the fountain scene, and also the bridge, which comes later on. So here we have also the fisherman, as I told you. The fisherman, this is still a lad. In the next representation, next year, when we inaugurate the one in the museum, he will have his father next to him, because I managed to find an original 18th century adult fisherman to accompany this lad. Okay, fisherman there, right? And also the bridge. The bridge is present in the Neapolitan crib, not just to create, something nice, the bridge, but the bridge represents the passage from ignorance to knowledge. In fact, as you can see, do you see this bluish tint here? The Neapolitans have a way to put a bluish tint on the rock formation. It is called cilestrone, this type of tints in blue. And why? To create a glacial feeling, cold. So from this section, the rocky section with these bluish tints, the movement across the bridge to this yellowish ochre, warm, enlightened section of the Nativity of Jesus Christ shows the passage from the cold and dark and ignorant to the light of salvation, the knowledge of Christ, and the Word of God. So the presence of the bridge is the shift of the Christian, of the believer, from lack of knowledge to the knowledge of Christ, or the conversion. There are many other characters, but time is pressing, I think, no? Let's say something about the attributions and the signatures. Now, attributing a character, a presepio figure, goes to the modeling. We say, there is Pierre here, you will understand, sure. The signature is the brush stroke of the artist, right? It's not necessarily that there is the signature. When you see the brush strokes, that means that you can decipher who is the artist. If someone copies a painting, but la malleabilità, no? The brush strokes of the artist, you can never copy them, unless you take a picture, a photograph. But the brush strokes are now with the presepio figures, the same thing. The way they modeled and the way they used to put the nose and the distance between eyes and the features of the cheeks and so on, the modeling you can tell from which artist or which school. But there are instances where the presepio figure is signed. In this case, this character is signed here, Torre. Now, if you have a presepio figure and you want to see if it is signed or not, since the costumes were made to measure, cuciti addosso, they say, that the character figure is dressed, but it is sewn on the mannequin, so you cannot remove the clothes. Cuciti addosso. So to try to check if there is a signature or not, what you have to do is to destroy the figure, which is not worth it, because you can destroy it and then you'll find that there is no signature at all. So you better leave them as they are. In this case, when they are completely ruined, you can check to see whether there is a signature or not. And in many instances, I found signatures, of course, but when the figure is need reparation or restoration. In other cases, prima vestitura, we say you have to keep it as it is. Don't touch it. Prima vestitura, that is, they are still with their original attire, never to be touched. For the restorers here, never touch la prima vestatura, mai. Some other examples of the magnificent features of the presepio figures. The angels, the way they used to. Now, many of the presepio figures, which we find the 18th century especially, they were modeled on real life people. Not only those who were important or exotic, but even the street vendors. The pastorari used to see the lady selling cheese or the fishermen, and they used to model. In fact, if you put a black and white picture of a presepio figure, you'll say, who is he or who is she, rather than what it is, because it resembles a real life person. So many of the presepio figures were modeled on real life people, even with broken teeth and moles and so on, or squinty eyes. They used to model them as from real. So when we look at these characters, there is a myriad of characters of different faces and expressions and races. You would ask, if they had to say a story on the 200 or 300 years history of their existence, what would they relate? Imagina, kieku jgħidu l-istorja tagħhom dawn, kemm from one hand to other, from one collection to the other, from one market to the other, and so on and so forth. They all have a story to relate, since they were created on real life people. So this is my conclusion, that the Neapolitan presepio is the most opulent expression of the Nativity of Christ, the most original, because the Neapolitans had a way how to mingle history with biblical information, and also traditional, and also different experiences and characters, even local characters, even when they created the characters of anachronistic figures. Today they put Maradona and Marilyn Monroe and all the rest. They make them presepio figures. This is not new at all, because in the 18th century they used to create characters also with according to the commission. For example, when the queen wanted to create some figures, she wanted the pastoraro to put her sister in the crib, so he modeled her sister as a popolana. Or when two noble people wanted to create their crib, they wanted the artist to put them, to model them in the crib. When the queen wanted to visit the crib of the Principe di Schiatella, it is all documented, it says that she went with the carrozzone dorato, with the gilded carriage, accompanied by her dami, the dames, and the guardie tedesche in front, the German soldiers. Imagine tall soldiers to protect these ladies in the golden carriage, to visit the crib of the Principe di Schiatella. And it continues. And the Principe, con la sua consorte, with his wife, e l'architetto, and the architect, was on the steps of the palace to receive the queen and her dami, and her ladies in waiting. And they went to visit the crib. And the crib was of great opulence, with many characters and beautiful scenery. And it says also, and amongst the figures, there was a Maltese knight on horseback. Imagine if we have to find it lel, this Maltese knight with the 8-pointed cross on horseback as a Neapolitan crash figure. So it was very actual that the Principe wanted a Knight of Malta in his crib. So this is something which existed, it still exists, and it will exist. So that it's what I had to say. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Monsignor Vella, for this stunning, impressive lecture, so detailed, and you gave us a really overview of the origin of the crib, but particularly on the Neapolitan crib, the evolution and the symbolism. Every figure and every scene has a particular meaning, and it is, I think, a theological school looking at the Neapolitan crib with all the meanings of this special birth of Jesus. I don't know whether we have time for questions. A lecture, for a question, or because it's 8:30, I think we leave this, Monsignor Vella.
There is much more to say, But
oh, definitely. But,
we'll hold it.
I invite you to buy your book if it's still on shelves. I don't think but. We encourage you to reprint it with new editions of the acquisitions you had during the last years. I invite you, before you go, to look at the crib, which is unique also at St. John's. It belongs to the bottega of Giuseppe Luca, and we are so proud that this Co-Cathedral, we have this stunning also crib, which continues to enrich this monument. It's not a crib, monumental crib, as you have seen. By the way, the pictures you have seen, the slides, that represented the crib of Monsignor Vella, which will be then displayed permanently at the Cathedral Museum. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your patience in waiting listening to such a long lecture, but it was definitely very, very interesting, and you kept us really, really curious to know exactly what's next and to understand the depth and the significance of the Neapolitan crib. Good evening. I wish you all, on behalf of the foundation, a happy Christmas, blessed Christmas, and a happy New Year.